It is time for Book of Experts TV. And today we're answering a question. Boy, I wish I had a nickel for every time I've heard this from someone recently. They've been saying, I feel I'm an expert in my space. I'm darn good at what I do, but I feel like a best kept secret. Like not enough people know what I'm doing. And I just want to get my work out there. I want to make a bigger impact. We're going to solve that problem 3 different ways today with our rockstar panel of experts who are going to give you 3 different ways to boost your visibility and make a bigger impact in the world. But first, let's get a word from our sponsor here at Book of Experts TV.
Time for Book of Experts TV.
Topics you love.
Experts you trust.
Friction-free referrals.
Tried,
Tested,
Trusted.
This is Book of Experts, brought to you by salesman.me.
Great. I'm going to welcome our panel into the screen with me. Welcome, guys, rock stars that you are. First, I'm going to introduce Molly Mahoney. She is the prepared performer. She delivers the Camera Confidence program and the GLAM, which is the Go Live and Monetize program. Big fan of Molly's for a long time, and super excited to have you on the program with us, Molly. Welcome.
Hey, thank you. I'm so glad to be here. This is so fun. I love it.
Molly is joining us from the West Coast. Here on the East Coast, we actually have Steve Markman, who is joining us from Markman Speaker Productions, where you have a speakers bureau and you specifically focus with executives, helping them boost their visibility through more, I would say, the traditional speaking route, getting up on stage, maybe speaking virtually as well, but using that platform to get your message out there. And all the way in Hawaii, I had to check in, by the way, on this one. I was going to play the Where in the World Are You, Carmen Sandiego, because when I follow Richie on Instagram, and I could swear you posted a Mont Saint-Michel, France picture the other day. So I thought you might have been in Europe, but he's actually over in Hawaii. Richie Norton, who is the author of, I want to make sure I get this right, The Power of Starting Something Stupid, expert on podcast guest mastery. And also, I know you do a ton of products. I know you're the CEO of Prouduct as well. That might be a fun thing to get a hook in there at the end, because I know you've done some amazing things with other influencers in the space, physical products, working with people who can produce really cool stuff. So welcome to the whole gang. Super excited to have you here. Listen, you guys are rock stars to solve this big, hairy problem, which is experts. They can't make their impact if people don't know who they are, what they do, and why they should be working with them. And you each have solved this in a unique way. Molly, I brought you on first. I want you to start with if you'd give us the perspective of going live. You've been doing this for a while because I've been following you for a while. I know you're one of the ambassadors with Be Live, a similar platform to what we're using today. Why does that model work best for you?
Well, really, I take all of my wisdom in life has come from Mr. Rogers. And if you look at Mr. Rogers, while he wasn't live streaming at the time, really what he was doing was showing up and having a conversation with one person. And in watching the documentary that is out, has been out for a couple of years, someone asked him, what was the secret to your success? And he said it was showing up and speaking to one person. And that's something that you can do so easily with live video, by showing up and saying, hey, neighbor, instead of, hey, everybody in Facebook land, by showing up and saying, hey, neighbor, even if nobody shows up live, the way that, and this works for whether you're using YouTube, LinkedIn, whatever, but for me, the real juicy one is Facebook Live, because the way that the video is actually constructed, even if nobody shows up live, if you use the right strategies and you get that video in front of different people, they'll start to interact as if it was live, because the comments are free flowing, the likes and the hearts. Like if you're watching this here right now, whether you're watching it in the replay or live, we can have that one-on-one conversation. So just let me know, are you watching this live or in the replay? And I have to tell you, a lot of times people are confused. And they think they're watching it live, or they think they're watching it in the replay. And we don't aim to confuse people, but we do aim to have that one-on-one conversation. And then you can come back and continue that relationship. So it's pretty cool.
Folks, this is why Molly is so good, because she's already doing what I try to do, and I'm just not as smooth at it as she is, but she's cueing you guys out there in our audience to say hello. Like, if you're new to the Experts Need to Know show, give us a wave, say I'm new, chat in. We've got Kevin said, I love that, Molly. Show up, speak to one person from the heart. And I know Kevin, and I know exactly where he's coming from. He does that so well in this virtual format as well, when you make that heart-to-heart connection with people. We have other folks. We have Scott Kiesling, who said hello, checking in as well. So let's pass the ball over to Steve. Steve, tell us about your perspective. You run the Speakers Bureau. You've worked with executives all the way from folks at IBM, big corporate level, all the way down to entrepreneurs. Not always paid speaking gigs either. I'd like to hear that angle of why, what are you doing, and why are people coming to you even to get into the speaking game, even if it's not the traditional paid speaking gig?
Sure,
Steve,
thanks, Tobin. So basically, I've basically been able to have a business for 26 years now, where I primarily handle unpaid speakers. So the whole idea is for individuals and corporate executives, whichever the case they may be, certainly with a lot of individuals who are consultants, coaches, et cetera, the chance to get on stage and to boost visibility through speaking engagements is the most important thing that they can do in my eyes, along with the other kinds of things like podcasts and so forth, and writing white papers and the like. But the idea of unpaid engagement is that you're not getting a check now, but you're going to get a check hopefully sometime in the future. So it's not current income, but it's future income. That's because you're having a presentation that will be in front of prospective customers and clients, and you've got topics that match up well with what they want to hear, that potentially lead to business. So it's a combination of business development through generation of leads, creating thought leadership opportunities, and building awareness for the personal and or corporate brand. Sometimes it's both. So that's.
Yeah, you cut out for us on the end there, Steve. One of the things that Steve shared that I really loved was this concept of deferred income. So you might not collect a speaking fee on the front end, but you are building relationships and authority in your marketplace that is going to lead to more business, and not just for the individual. Maybe if you're doing business development for a bigger corporation, it could also be a key part of landing one of those big enterprise deals because they saw you in a different light from the work you've done. So I really love that angle. Richie, I'm coming at you because, boy, do we get a ton of questions in the Book of Experts community about guesting on podcasts. One of the questions I love to ask folks when we finish up a podcast is, what can I do for you? What questions, what resources may I have within my reach that I could bring to you in your way? And podcast guesting is one of, it seems like every other person is figuring out how to get on more shows and use this really intimate channel of being right in someone's ear and being able to reach new audiences that way. I know you're the master at this. I'd love to hear more about what you do and why.
First, whatever you're doing right here is awesome. There's just like a lot of love here. It's like a good vibe. So thank you for that. This is just really cool. And then it didn't always used to be that way. If you go back in time, no one talked about guesting. Guesting wasn't even a term. It was a term I invented to help people understand that they could be a guester instead of a podcaster, because the technology, 9-10 years ago when I got into it was such a disaster that it took heroic efforts to become a podcaster. And so I thought, well, if I want to reach 1 million people, it'll take a long time as a podcaster, and it's difficult, and I have to schedule things, and it starts to get crazy. Or I can talk on 10 podcasts that have 100,000 person reach and theoretically reach 1 million people overnight. Now, I didn't think that in the beginning. I thought that looking back. I saw way back in the day, Seth Godin was one of the first to promote his books by being on podcasts. And I was like, what's a podcast? So I started researching and doing it, and I was promoting my book. And so I started getting on podcasts. And what you learn really quickly is when you get on one, you get on more because podcasts are looking for guests from other guest lists. So it's kind of like starts to evolve. And what's most interesting, though, as we tie it all together between books and being a speaker and being a podcast guester, is that it doesn't take a massive audience like 1 million people to make a lot of money. It takes, if your goal is money, it takes one person to listen to it and it's so cool. An expert endorses you. The audience already loves that expert, so they instantly love you. And if your message resonates with them and they reach out to you in one way or another, which we can talk about, it turns into sales. And I remember one year I did like 300, 1 month, I did like 300 grand in a month. And I was like, where'd all this money come from? And it was like, all from guesting. I've now generated millions of dollars by being a guest only, just by talking. And now I'm a podcaster because that's cool too.
Well, I was going to ask you about that angle because you're not only a podcaster, you're one of the most prolific podcasters that I know. I saw an email recently where you talked to like 60 different guests that you've had on in a short period of time. So I know when you're active, you're like super active bringing people on. Do you continue to be as active as a guest as you are creating your own podcast?
Yeah, and it's actually the secret. I mean, I started you say I have 60 and it's true. I started in January. I mean, we're talking, I just started, just brand new. So I spent 10 years only as a guest. And, but to answer your question, what was your question again?
Well, I'm curious if you continue to guest at the rate that you did before now that you've started your own podcast.
Those follow entrepreneurial podcasters like John Lee Dumas, Pat Flynn, they're clients of mine. And you'll learn from them instantly that they're on just as many shows or more as they are the ones they put on. So John Lee Dumas, he changed it now, but he used to do 1 a day, 30 a month, and also do 20 or 30 guest shows a month because listeners become listeners. Does that make sense? Like if you were on one show as a guest, they become listeners of your show as a host. It's just so simple. It's like so simple.
I love that angle, and big shout out to John and Kate. So I'm a native Mainer, where they're John and Kate are from Maine as well. So yes, they're a very well known story because what John did with Entrepreneur on Fire is just create a rocket ship there, and a lot of it was that I'm just getting out there so consistently and building so quickly. It's an awesome story. I want to jump to a few guests here. So Erica Holthausen said, "Molly, I love that wisdom about Mr. Rogers. Makes all the difference there." Paul Rosenberg said, "Wisdom on guesting. Not only wisdom, Paul, but on guesting from the guy who came up with the term guesting." I didn't know that about you, Richie, that you had done that as well. Kevin's really appreciating that as well. And Erica says, having been a guest for so long, it takes a lot. It's a lot easier for Richie to get exceptional guests on his podcast. I imagine that is true. That has been part of the secret of getting out there in different, it's a laddering process, right? Bigger stages to speak from, bigger audiences when you're going live, bigger or higher visibility names on your guest list, and you just keep climbing the mountain.
Well, I would say yes or no, because I was obviously, fair enough, I have a book, I know people, done, got it. But I was very tempted to start by not having like the A-lister guests because I was brand new. When in reality, some of your most powerful asks come by saying, "Hey, hero that I love, I'm brand new, I don't know what I'm doing. Would you don't have to say yes. You can totally not do this, but it would be an honor to have you on." So I would say be courageous and ask baller people to be on your show. What are you going to do? Wait 10 years to have them on your show? Do it right now. There's so many good ways to do it.
I love that. And I'm going to take that advice to the bank as well. Molly, I'd love to hear your perspective. So I'm going to out you for a second because you shared an experience, and we don't have to get into all the details about the how, what, and why, but you shared a post with me this weekend when we were chatting back and forth, and you said something that just struck a chord with me, which was, you're going to show up whether it's 2 people or 200 people, And that's part of this game of going live as well, because the numbers do fluctuate. Sometimes you hit it and you just see that, and it's fun, like just see the numbers sort of spooling up. Sometimes you're in a small group, but you can still make that big impact, even if it's only a few people. I would love to hear more about your perspective, because you just spoke to my heart this weekend.
Thank you I did not expect us to talk about that, but yeah, I'd love to talk about it. And it's similar to what Richie kind of said something about that now too, and if you think about like,
Live internet show.
If you're speaking in a actual room, right? Like Steve on stage, if you had 100 people in a room, for most people, they'd be like, wow, 100 people are here. If they had 4 people in a room these days, they'd probably still be stoked. What happens is when we're going live online, we get these vanity numbers in our head. And I recognize that sometimes as you level up in your business, you do need to set boundaries, and you need to say, if this isn't going to generate enough attention, it might not be worth it for me to actually do it. But that being said, you never know when, by just showing up and creating the conversation, that one person that's there on the other side, you still, first of all, have the opportunity to make an impact on them as a human being. So we're really big about recognizing that when 2 people show up on your live video, you want to stay in immense gratitude, because if you approach it from the place of there's only 2 people here, that energy is going to come through the video, and it's going to, not only are you going to be like kind of a jerk, it's also going to affect your sales down the road, because you're bringing in an attitude of dismissiveness towards that one person. And you never know, like this goes back to when I was working as a professional theater performer. The way that you treat the person who is helping you with your quick change backstage is going to, you never know who that person is. They could be the director of the next show that you do. They could, they're a human. And I think it's honestly the main reason I think that I'm married to the person that I'm married to today, because he was the bass player in the show. And he said it made such a big deal to him that I went and introduced myself to every single member of the band and connected with them as a human being. And so if you are not respecting the community by dismissing the small numbers that are showing up on your show, especially when you first get started, but I think we need to maintain this as we're growing, then it's going to come back and bite you in the butt one way or the other.
I love the digital space. I mean, I've been working in digital marketing for 12 years now, and there's so many things about it to love. And I think in many ways, this current upside down world that we're living in has accelerated a lot of, like, my days don't look that different than they have in the last 5 years, but I know it's very different for some people. But the one thing, the big downside that I see is this emphasis on the vanity numbers. And Steve, I'm curious what you see on your end, because I know from the work that you do that sometimes there are big corporate names involved. If I'm Big Blue and I'm IBM and they're trying to get their people into these speaking engagements because it's part of their business development strategy, do they wrestle with this same issue, or is it just the names carry the day and put a bunch of seats, butts in the seat, or if it's a virtual experience, a bunch of eyeballs on the screen?
Yeah, it's really a matter of quality versus quantity. And when I say quality, I mean, we're all quality people, but they're looking for a particular type of profile, right? An executive with a certain title. In the case of IBM, it might be a director and up. And if there's 15 great people in the audience, whether it's virtual or in person, that's better than 100 of the quote unquote wrong people that will never buy their product or really won't make an impact on any kind of relationship with IBM. If you're a small business owner, an entrepreneur, have a small software company, and it's something that's consumer oriented, it speak to a chamber of commerce, or speak to a small business association, or even a group of people at a local library in your town, and have 30 or 40 people. So it's really more a question of matching up with the audience. If, like Molly says, if you can get some business, make a sale road, it really doesn't matter if you speak to 3 people. It's going to be a huge success if you come away with business versus speaking to 500 people and you did a great job, you knocked yourself out, everybody applauded, and that was the end of that. So it's really looking what are the results.
So Richie, I'm going to bring this back around to you because when you're speaking from a stage, I understand that you could do, for example, we're getting a little feedback in the audio. So I think we're good now. So if you were speaking from a stage, as Steve was describing, you might be able to do, smaller chamber events, or you're basically building and you're finding your voice from the stage. And Molly, I think that's true of going live as well. One of the big advantages when you start doing it, you might have those smaller numbers, but you're really finding your pattern, your phrases, your hooks, like you're getting better every time out. But Richie, on the guesting side, this feels like you've got to bring your A game. Can you walk us through sort of this leveling up process? So when I hear people say, I want to guest more, what should they be thinking about? What's the minimum level that they need to get more opportunities, and what should be where should they take that next? What's the progression look like?
That's a good question. And let me bridge it with, like, if you're looking for numbers or vanity metrics, you'd be doing that for a reason. And then you'd also be like, oh, it's not my fault that no one saw my live, because not only did I not tell anybody I was going to go live and prepare people to be there and show up on time, Facebook just shows what they're going to show. So like you can start thinking about it more logically and less emotionally, right? And then meeting the best speaker in the world with the largest audience in the world could show up and have 0 if the platform decided not to share it. So at some point, it's about the technology, not about you. And in other ways, it is all about you, because now that you know how the technology works, you can prepare for that. As far as podcast guesting goes, if you want to get on more shows, you could decide, am I going to be on a few or more or less? But at the end of the day, if I wanted to be on 10 shows today, and not me, I mean you too, you would reach out to 10 podcasters and ask if you could be on their show today. And you'd say, oh, only 1 said yes, which I don't think that would happen. I think way more than 1 would say yes if you did it appropriately and you mission match. Like you said, that your message would resonate with their audience and there's something in it for them. It's not all about you. If it's about them. So assuming 1 or 2 say yes, then it becomes math. Yeah. Every time I want to be on a podcast, I better reach out to 10. And so then if I didn't reach out to 10 today, I can't complain that I'm not on any guest shows because I actually didn't work. Same thing with money. People will say, Richie, I worked for a year. I didn't make any money. How can you help me? And I go, when's the last time you asked somebody for their credit card? You can't make money unless you ask people to pay you. And so in essence, you haven't worked a day in your life. You've been preparing to work. If work means money, you have to do money-making activities. If work means being a guest on a show, you have to do the work to be a guest on the show, not just pretending like one day you want to be there. So at the end of the day, it's actually super direct. Message people on Twitter, message people on Instagram. If they have a form on their website, you can use it. They probably won't get back to you because they get hundreds. Ask friends and family to introduce you. And you go down the list of ideal people and non-ideal people, but they're all good people and they're all good humans. So it doesn't really matter because it's the audience. And all of a sudden it turns into a snowball effect where you're talking. I literally turn down probably 20 to 30, not turn down. I am forced to ignore 20 to 30 requests to be a guest on a show every week because it's too much. And then I have to get back and figure it out. It was not on purpose. It was because this snowball effect. So if you want to be on guest shows, the next step would be why? Awareness, or are you selling a book? Or are you trying to make money? Or is it just for fun? Just for fun, then who cares? If it's to make money, well, then you got to figure out how to be on the show and then make a call to action so that that audience moves to become your audience. Then you can nurture that relationship and make offers.
So, Richie, I want to tell you, we had several people react. I think you hit a nerve with a bunch of us when you said, if you're not asking for the credit card numbers, like you're just getting ready to get ready. And I think, this is what the group gathered to hear. Like, let's get real on this. I want to ask you one more mechanical question though, while I have you up on this topic. What specifically are you looking for as a podcaster with your guests, or that you've used in your outreach when you've been guesting with others? So how important is the one pager what else are you doing? Like, how are you framing, or how are you thinking about framing that message when you talk about, this is your audience, this is why I think this message that I want to share resonates? What else should we be thinking?
It is the absolute opposite of a one-pager or a template form. It is literally, what's up, bro? Your podcast is sick. I'd love to be on it. If not, no worries. How does it work? This is how people interact, like being in a bar and saying hi before marrying them. You become people's friends. Then they're like, I don't want to think about how selfish that is. I want to be transactional. I want to just tell people I want to be on their show and have them on. Cool, if that's what you want to do. But if you want to be a transformational guest, you act like a human, like our friend, who are we talking about? Mr. Rogers. Hey, it's like basic. And then someone says, oh, but my book launch is coming up next week. Yeah, you probably missed your opportunity. Or you can think long-term, long game, and now be on 100 shows over the next year as opposed to next week. Not rocket science, but it does take like effort in a way that is not professional, but is professional.
Yeah.
Wow.
I love it all so much, by the way. I feel like those, is it okay, Tobin?
Yeah, please. I was coming to you next anyway. So
I think there's two huge things about this. One is showing up, because, even in the beginning when we were talking about, like, it's not like just all of a sudden you do 2 podcasts and all these things happen, or you go live, like when you're talking about John Lee Dumas, like he showed the F up like again and again and again. And I think, people will see like, oh, when you go live, you get 400 comments, whatever. But I've been going live once a week for 3 years. It's like, and whether or not there's one person or 50 people or 200 people, I show up with the same energy and the same value, and trust that it will continue to be like compound upon itself. It grows. The other thing is the human piece. So many people want just a template that they can reach out and follow when it comes to whether it's a one sheet, that type of stuff. But when it comes to the actual messaging, whether it's booking as being on as a guest or a sales conversation, which Tobin, I'm sure you could speak to too. It's like, let's take a step back and just, first of all, be an actual human being. And I think the easiest way to do that is something that I don't know if it's easy, but like the way to see it that makes it a little easier is that you always have a business objective, whether that's your book sales or, JV partnership or booking a speaking engagement, but you also have an intention as a human. And if you mix those two up, then that's when you become what we call a salesy weirdo, and people pick up on that energy.
Totally.
So if you can separate those two things, and I actually was just stalking you behind the scenes, Richie, and we have had conversations in Messenger that I totally forgot about, BT did.
BFF. It's good.
It's a very normal human conversation, because
they weren't robotic, were they?
Yeah, if it had been robotic, I would have had a follow-up system in place, I suppose.
That's right.
But then that's what's cool too, is that then when you do get connected with someone, you can see like, wait a minute, we have actually spoken before. We are human beings. It's like,
wow.
Yeah, I really love the way Richie described the process, because it mirrors what we do in Sales Map. That is the whole, it's that human to human, heart-centered conversation, which stands out these days more than ever before, because I think we're all so craving those connections with all these changes around us. And there is a lot of automation. There is a lot of marketing and funnels and technology. Sometimes you just want to connect with the person, and that's where the business happens.
Let's just use one quick example. Like, if you go into your LinkedIn inbox, are 99% of them messages that they were just templated out and were automatically sent to you, and now it's literally the same thing as junk mail in your mailbox? Yes. The one person that cuts through the noise to ask a real question that's interested in you and not themselves, and you finally see it, that person wins every time.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I love that, Richie. In fact, this is how you and I connected. I've been a fan for a long time and reached out and said, this is why I'm a fan. And when it works, I'd love to have you here, because this is a conversation I've been long anticipating.
That's right.
So, Steve, I want to bring it back around to you. You are seeing this shift in the space. We're going to talk about this in a moment, about what's happening in the event world, because we've got a group of you here that are very involved, engaged, speaking from these stages and at different events. But you specifically in your business have been making this shift to the virtual side, helping people get ready for their virtual speaking engagements because many of the in-person events were taken away. What are you doing, and how are you thinking about helping people make that leap if they haven't been doing it before? If they want to leverage and boost their visibility by speaking more, what specifically are you doing to help them get ready? Because it's got to be more than just go get an opportunity.
Right. Well, go get an opportunity. Actually, the hardest part, right? That's where people grapple with, and they don't know how to do that. They wake up one day and say, I ought to be speaking, or I ought to be speaking more, but they just don't understand the processes and sort of the state of the union in the conference world. 95% of all speaking engagements are on paid. The thousands of associations out there, I think there are 37,000 associations in the States, they all need speakers. Desire for continues unabated, even though we've now gone to a 100% virtual world, and I believe it'll be that way for a long time to come. And so what I developed was a training program where instead of me doing all the heavy lifting, which I had done for my first 25 years in business, I now teach people in a 2-hour or 4-hour training session how to get speaking engagements, because it's the processes and the techniques and the methods that confuse a lot of people, and it's much harder than most people think. It's not just calling somebody and saying, hey, I'm available next month. It's a process. You have to develop marketing materials. You have to do, even for these all unpaid engagements, you still have to prove yourself to somebody and establish your credibility, know what kind of marketing materials to have, and how to do the research so you know which events you should be identifying that line up with your industry or your offerings, so that you are speaking to people who are really the targeted audience that you want to speak to. So that's what I've been doing and how I've shifted in these last 5 or 6 months, and doing online training so how to get these speaking engagements. It's actually more important than the degree aspect, because you want to be able to get in front of the right people.
So each of you has essentially a signature program in your respective spaces. So I want to bring this back around to Richie and Molly, because Molly, for you, it's glam. I think maybe camera confidence too, but I'm more familiar with glam, and I know that's a big part of what you do. Richie, the podcast guesting mastery for you, what is it that people need to know going into these programs? If you could, who says this? Tim Ferriss, I think, says if you could have the big billboard for one day, and you could get this billboard seen by the people that are coming into your programs to learn this area of specialty for each of you. Molly, you first. What do you want them to know before they even come in the door of your program?
Just to clarify, so the question, do you mean what do I want them to know about the program, or what do I want them to know about themselves?
I want to know. Yeah. So thank you for asking that. I would like to understand what they need to know that they're going to be successful going through this process. That they know this is their home, where they should be, and they're going to come out the other end with the goals and objectives they've set.
So for them, for some more for themselves, for them
Yes.
to be successful with it. Yeah. So it's recognizing that you are going to have to show up a little bit. This isn't something where you just like turn on a messenger bot and all of a sudden, dollars fall out of the sky. You are going to have to actually show up and be a human being who connects with other humans, provides value, and is willing to, there's like the concept of the rudders and the sails. So within this system that we have, if you show up and follow the system and really be open to connecting and open to giving, and then follow the pieces that we have in place, which will help you to unlock the possibility online, so that when you do go live, you can monetize, which is what GLAM stands for, go live and monetize, because you are showing up as the expert that you really are. And it doesn't have to be that you go live every day. I know a lot of people see what I'm doing, and the success of the members in GLAM is not about doing something like me. It's about doing something like you. And lucky for you, we have, I've worked with performers and business owners to really help them figure out how to unlock that thing and then elevate it. So the more you become, the more success you see on the other side, which is pretty dang cool.
Richie, I'm curious about you. What do folks need to know if they really want to ramp up this guesting mastery? What do they need to think about? What's the mindset that they need before they even start going through the program, getting the benefits of what you show?
It's a good question. And, all programs are different. And I think in general, any course creator has seen that if they don't apply what they learn, then it's just a total waste of time. We've also learned that if we give it away for free, no one uses it. And we also know that if they wait till the end to try and apply it, they actually never apply it. So it's better to do it right when you learn, as you're going, do it immediately. Pay for it and do it immediately instead of waiting is the best route. As far as my course specifically, that one, I didn't make it on purpose. I made it because people kept asking me for it. Literally, what are you doing? How'd you make all that money? I went into a forum with Facebook advertisers and said, just made 300 grand. I didn't use any ads. I was just on these guest shows. And everyone's like, what did you do? And I didn't think I was being offensive. I was just like saying it. And then I realized, oh my gosh, I shouldn't say that to advertisers. And what a terrible person I am. You can make money without paying for ads. It's unbelievable. But the response was great. And so they're like, you should write a book. I'm like, and I'll do a course. Like, 'cause you can make way more money with the course and they're way more effective depending on the strategy and the tactics. So mine, I made it so you don't have to wait for them all to unlock. You can do it like, piece it together and use it as you need based on where you are. But at the end of the day, like, whether it's guesting or another course or anything like that, if you really want to do something, you have to do it, and you have to do it. And I'm going to say it now, not in a week. My backstory, just real quick. I have a son that passed away that changed the way I look, the way the world works, and how much time I have in life and what I'm going to do with it. And so I create things that give people an ability to gain their time back instead of wasting their time. Like, it'd be great to be on stages every day, but if you know anyone who's a professional speaker, they will tell you when they're in retirement that they spend no time with their family, and they're sad about it. The internet's a great opportunity to change that completely. So I think that's the opportunity you're creating here. This is a perfect example of how we can talk to lots of people or the one, and we can make a difference from some weird bedroom at your house. Like, it's it's incredible.
Or like outer space wave. Or
So I want to highlight here, Tina has asked
Is that
a
where
question,
you are?
and I put this on the screen, and she said, I'm a newbie in my space, and she wants to ask this advice from each of you. She's worried about putting herself out there and probably feeling maybe not quite ready. What's your short advice? We'll go around the room. Steve, to Richie, to Molly, you'll back clean up on this one.
Well, I always tell people that say they're afraid to start, you got to start somewhere. So start small. If you have a local group, association, your town or your region, that's a local chapter of a national association, or even a small association that is focusing on your specialty, approach them and ask them what is the process for getting into a speaking engagement. They may do monthly or periodic webinars or other meetings, and see how that goes first before you start too big. If you want to try to get the self-confidence of speaking in front of a smaller audience first, sometimes that does help.
Richie, how about you? What would you share with Tina?
I guess it would depend on what it is your goal. I would just say name it to tame it. Like, whatever it is that you're scared of something, say it out loud and then pretend like that doesn't exist and do it anyway. If you put yourself 2 years out into the future and say, this is what I want my dream life to look like, then you can act from the future and do that right now instead of waiting 2 years to do it like most people do.
Yeah, no regrets. You don't want to go forward with regrets. Yeah. Molly, I'm going to ask you if you can give us a quick answer on this question and then take us over into the event, because I've seen your boot collection of what you wear on stage. When are those puppies coming off the shelf? back onto the stage. What's happening with events in the coming year? But first, quick answer to Tina's question.
Okay, first, my lack of shoes. I'm barefoot right now again. Has been, I mean, as a dancer, my feet are very happy about it because I definitely have had stress fractures. And when I speak on stage, I wear heels that are like this high. But they are, what Tobin is referring to is I have this awesome closet with like a beautiful lit display case for all of my shoes. And I just did a video of them, how they're sad and missing the real world. So I'm excited to dive into that too. But so Tina, what I would say is you've got to tap into who you actually are as a human being and learn how to celebrate that. So this is even before you start putting yourself out there. We have an exercise called the Quesadilla of Awesome, which is about so we can all do it together. Actually, if we ever want to do it with me really quick, put your hands like this. You got it, Steve? All of your amazing things that you offer in your business, whatever the objective is, what you're going to be selling, put it right here. Steve, are you playing with us? Okay. And then we're going to thank you. We're going to throw it in the air. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Whoosh. And now it's floating above us like Mikey TV and Willy Wonka. And what are you left with?
Bubbles.
Bubble. Did you say bubble?
I just said bubbles. Yes.
Oh my gosh, we're going there. That's so weird. No one has ever done that before.
Well, I'm a fan of Willy Wonka. I don't know.
Oh my God, good one. So you're left with you. And that's both the most terrifying and the most awesome thing, right? So this is from when I was working with professional performers, like people with crazy Broadway credits who were still freaked out when they'd go to an audition. If they were singing like the national anthem at something, nervous. I'm like, you've done all these Broadway shows. What's your problem? But I realized that it's really, we have to figure out what makes us uniquely awesome in the first place. So the exercise is to make a list of 20 things that make you a uniquely awesome human being. We call that the Quesadilla of Awesome because everyone has something that makes them uniquely awesome, even if it's just that you make an amazing quesadilla. And then from there, you're going to take your hands and you're going to go like this after you have that little list there. And you're going to read that list and you're going to go like this. And you're going to feel the bubbles like on your chest, like tap on your chest. And you want to feel the bubbly sense of who you are, which is going to be different from anybody else. And we get into this comparison thing where we see somebody else's energy is resonating so well with their community. But when it really works, it's usually because they're bringing their true, essence and their real energy forward. And so the more you can do that, even though it's scary, recognize it's awesome. And it's not only going to have an effect on your business, but it probably will make you a happier person in life as well, because you'll get more in tune with who you are. So that'd be my first step. When it comes to events, oh my gosh. So I actually got to attend this amazing mastermind this past weekend that Pete Vargas hosted. And it was all about how he took his, he was doing so many in-person events and he put together this really cool 360 event blueprint that he shared with us. And what it really was about was taking it from just having a live stream like this, where it's very one-dimensional, and making it a full experience. So I was lucky enough to participate as a member of Jeff Walker's team. We've been building some of their Facebook and bot strategies out. And to see even how they did that with the Zoomzilla. Do you know about the Zoomzilla? Do you know what that is?
No, I don't know Zoomzilla.
It's a crazy, I think Sage, that event company, is the one who really started it, but where they have these huge screens with everybody in the Zoom room on the huge screens, so that you're not just seeing this one thing, you really are able to connect with people and having camera angles from different stages. I mean, not stages, but different areas. So it makes it more of a 360 experience. Sending things in the mail, like Pete said that he sent a Moscow Mule kit to everybody, all his VIPs. I did an event that Dominic Cummings hosted, I think I may have told you about, and they sent us these giant snack boxes. I was like, how am I going to eat all of this? But they sent us 3 snack boxes that were this big. My kids were so stoked. It's just really what can you do if you are going to be hosting your events or attending events even online? What can you do to make it unique and experiential? And then be stoked that when we go back into real life, when we are able to travel, recognize that our in-person events are going to be that much more amazing and powerful, because we'll be able to layer on top this new thing that we figured out how to do online.
Yeah.
So just a clarifying question on what you described, Molly, the screens that are surrounding you, this is primarily aimed at the influencer who is going to bring out, because they can see they get the full experience of what it would have been like if they were on stage. They're seeing people here and here, and their energy is amped up. But is it also changing the experience for the participant, the audience member?
1,000,000%. Because so like at Jeff's, I guess in real life, I'd never been to one of his events before, but they do this thing where they go launch. They like, everybody does this at one person. So they would bring that one person on the big screen behind him. And then we could also see the other Zoom rooms. So it really looked like, I mean, it honestly looked better than what's happening on the basketball field. Obviously, I'm so into sports. Basketball court. You know how they're trying to make it look like there's people like virtually in the house? It's kind of the same concept, but it really did make it feel like we were all there, because he was calling out people's names. Pete said that he referred to 1,000 people by their first name individually during his event. Like called them out. Hey, Tobin, Steve, Richie, like calling their actual names out. Crazy.
Yeah, I think the creativity for this stuff is through the roof. Listen, guys, for time reasons, we're going to cut short the sort of the event discussion part of our conversation today, because I'm selfish. I want to get into the picks of the panel because I enjoy it that much. Steve, I'm going to start with you so you can get ready. We'll go Steve, Richie, and then Molly, I'm going to let you back clean up again one last time before we wrap up. Before we do that, just as a reminder for folks, make sure you join us for the Speed Networking, the networking event that we do right after the show. We're going to leave here. So this is live streaming, whether you're watching us on YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn or Periscope, or Twitter, or wherever you're finding us. We're actually going to jump over to the Blitzer platform. The link is in the comments. We're actually going to meet there, and then Blitzer matches us up. And you're going to meet 5, 6, 7 different experts in about 45 minutes, less than 45 minutes. It's a really cool platform. I want you guys to see. It's been one of the great additions we've done to the Expert Show, because you get a chance to hear from the experts and then continue the conversation afterwards. And if you haven't already, make sure you check us out at bookofexperts.com. You'll see folks like our guest experts today. We want you to see what we're doing there, see the other experts, dig into the programs that they're offering there. It's a pretty cool thing, and we're rather proud of it. So with that said, Steve, if you would share with us your pick of the week.
Yeah, so I mentioned before there are close to 40,000 associations in the United States, and every one of them has speaking opportunities. So I would like to see people take a look at the American Society of Association Executives, ASAE, which is the foremost and primary association representing associations of all types in the United States. Of course, there are even more worldwide. And if you join, you have to be part of their various forums. And that's enabled me to be able to track what is happening in the conference world. And even though we're not covering your last question, I'll put a quick one in there, which is that I'm able to see what other conferences are doing and associations are doing, and when they plan on going back to live, or I should say in person versus virtual, what the trends are. And it looks like it's a year away at least for going back in person until there's a vaccine, and then some because of travel restrictions and local laws, even if things are better in the world of COVID. So that SAE is something that I would recommend people to take a look at.
Thanks for that share, and also thanks for bringing that full circle. I think that is a good point, that there's not just the availability of the events themselves, but there's all these other logistical things around it. So thank you for that. Richie, how about you? Pick of the week.
I can recommend a book.
Love to hear it. What is Richie reading these days?
You should read Personality Isn't Permanent by Ben Hardy. Ben Hardy's a client of mine for 5 or 6 years. He speaks at Joe Polish's Genius Network. He's co-authoring a book with Dan Sullivan, and he takes a real hard look at personality tests and how they're basically horoscopes, and how you can actually change your life by not believing something that happened in the past that may not be true. And you can intentionally create a better future by doing something really. It's fantastic. You like that, Molly?
Okay, I want to tell you, my team member Kelly, who's our director of education, she got into like an all-out war with the people at the Strengths Finder because she wanted to take it again, and they were like, "No, these results are permanent." So I am buying that book for her because she's going to be so excited. It was like she was breaking into some like high-level bank or something to be able to take her Strengths Finder test again. So.
We're going to do an episode on this topic because I have a couple of clients that work in this space around what is our unique genius and this whole topic of personality and tests and stuff. So maybe we're going to have to dig deeper on this on another day. Molly, I am going to let you back clean up. I want to do my very quick pick of the week. If you guys haven't seen them, I bought these pod decks. Have you guys seen these? They're like little card decks with questions, and I don't use them all the time because I'm a pretty curious guy. And when I have a guest panel like you guys, it's really easy. Like I could talk to you all day long, but they do have thought-provoking questions. One of them is episode ideas, and the other one is actual questions for your guests. So this is from poddecks.com. I thought that was kind of a neat thing that I picked up recently.
I am like getting those for client gifts. That looks so awesome.
Yeah,
I love it.
I think they'll even you should talk with them because I think they may do a co-branded. I think they have a co-branded thing that you could do for
a glam deck. Your glam.
Yeah, you got it. All right, bring us home, Molly.
Okay, I have a really big tip, and I will tell you this tip just to prepare you. Let me know if you want it. Give us the word tip below this video if you want it, because this tip is what I shared at Pete's Mastermind, and it won me, even though I did not know it was a competition. I won an all expenses paid trip to Cloud Camp in Colorado because of this tip.
Wow.
Are you
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yes, my fingers are not on the keyboard, but I'm getting yes all over this one. And if you guys aren't answering out there to win this from, get Molly's attention on this, please get into the comments on that because she was telling me about what she's sharing and you guys want this.
Okay. So when you are showing up online, especially on Facebook, it can be hard to keep track of all of the outreach that you're doing, especially if you're doing it as a human who is just, connecting with other humans. Until now, enter Group Track. So there is this tool, and can I screen share?
Actually, we can't right now, Molly. Sorry, we're going to run out of time to get ready for networking.
Here's what happens though. When you click the extension, it automatically adds this little icon next to every single name anywhere you are on the Book of the Faces, whether it's on a business page, a group, your personal profile. You can then automatically click a little thing. It adds your connection into a separate CRM where you are able to track what stage of conversation, like client journey, whether they are a potential client, a power partner, all those different things in there. Your team can be added in there. You can add tags. It connects with a spreadsheet. It connects with ConvertKit, ActiveCampaign, all these things. So like literally you can be on Facebook, click one button, click another button, and automatically an email is sent if their email is in your system.
Oh, I love this.
The coolest thing ever, and like literally blowing minds. So
yeah, so one thing you guys need to understand about Molly is not only is she awesome at going live, she's also I'm going to call you the queen of client acquisition. I don't know if that title's taken or not, but she's really, really good and has all these systems behind her that help make this job easier. So that's super smart. I really like that. Listen, to our panel, we have to wrap up because I have to get over and open up the session, the networking session. So I hope you guys join us over there. Continue the conversation. I actually, you know what? If you come over to Blitzer, I will tell you one of the questions that I didn't ask the panel tonight, but you might actually want to ask them if you get matched up, or maybe ask some of the other people that you meet, because it's a pretty interesting question about what we think about as kids and what influences us as we try to boost our visibility in our work and our businesses and all those things. So that question's on the other side. Blitzer, the link is in the comments, or for you, Molly, it's also in the Google Doc that you got.
If I share on my watch party that I have going, I can share the event. Is that what I should share?
Yes. How can I get this to you? I will message. I'll do Facebook message with the link for Blitzer, so you can share it out that way.
Perfect.
Super. I appreciate you guys so much for taking the time. This was an awesome expert panel. Love it that you guys shared. You guys are rock stars, and I so appreciate it.
Man, that was great. Nice to meet you, Steve. Molly, you guys are best. Let's keep talking. See you in the next art. Bye.